The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Well, hello, everybody.
You all right?
That's all. Go.
No?
Keep going.
Okay. All right. So, it's another week of
No, you're
Second
doing a great
Breakfast.
job.
Oh, stop interrupting me, jerkface.
I think we're
I'm
a little out of sync here.
Phil, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I just...
I think we're on a delay, though.
Can we start over? Can we start over? Can we
You mean
start
literally
again,
or
please?
figuratively?
I'm not cutting any of
You mean
this.
literally or
This
figuratively?
Second Breakfast
Okay.
Nation is going to hear all of this. All of it.
Oh, gosh.
I know.
So they need... Okay, well, let's see what happens.
Folks, I'm still Andy Roth, and that's Phil Duvall, and we are Second Breakfast, and it's great to see you again. Clearly,
I
we don't know
guess.
what to do with ourselves over a weekend when we don't see you.
We are not professionals anymore. We're amateurs all over again. It's
That's
really
right.
ridiculous.
We've reclaimed our amateur status.
It's done.
It's done.
It's the thing now.
Like those people that
I'm
reclaim
excited
their
for
virginity,
today.
which is weird.
Yeah. Those people... There's a word for those people. Wrong.
That's right. That's correct. You're correct.
Also liars. And they'd be liable to theft in ancient times because a woman's virginity came with a price. If you took a woman's virginity and didn't marry her, then you had to pay the bride price for her, which means that if you told someone that she was a virgin and she wasn't, that's theft right there. That's theft. So people who pretend that they're still virgins after they aren't, nope, you're a thief.
That is fascinating, and I have absolutely no response to it. So let's talk about movies.
What'd you see this week, Andy Roth?
Almost nothing. But I did get to the
wow.
theater. So that was nice. I saw
There you go.
Thor: The Dark World. Thor.
You mean Thor 2?
Go ahead and
Electric
say it.
Boogaloo?
There you go. I know you. Every time you say it too, you want to say it. Yes. That the very same. I'm aware that you saw it as well. I look forward to you listing your movies. I look forward to talking about it. Folks, we're going to talk about it later. I'd like to do it fairly spoiler-free. I think that's actually going to be pretty easy to do, frankly. I only saw one other movie. And that movie...
Tell me.
Room 237. A documentary about the conspiracy theories that have sprung up around Stanley Kubrick's movie The Shining. It is...
Wow.
I will leave it there. I'll leave it there. We'll talk about it in a bit.
I haven't watched
leave
it
there.
yet. We know that I'm going to watch it. We know that
Yes.
I'm going to watch it at some point.
It is...
So you only saw 2 movies.
I did.
Do you want to tell everyone what you texted me when you watched this movie?
I do. It'll take me a second to get there. Why don't you start? What movies did you see this week?
I saw 6 movies this week, Andy Roth.
Oh my! Well done, sir.
I know. It's true. I saw Ender's Game.
Ooh.
Ender's Game. I saw a little film called My Darling Clementine,
Okay.
which is an old John Ford Western about Wyatt Earp, starring Henry Fonda as Wyatt Earp.
I love everything you
It
said.
includes the choice line, that's what you get for giving alcohol. No, that's what you get for giving liquor to an Indian, I think is what the line was. It's pretty great. Anyways, so okay, or there's another line where he's talking to the bartender and he goes, "Did you ever want to get married, Mac?" And he goes, "No, I've been a bartender my whole life." But that was another great line.
Awesome.
I went and saw Thor: The Dark World. We're going to talk about that later. And then the wife and I rewatched. She'd never seen it. The Full Monty, Andy. The Full
Oh!
Monty.
What a lovely movie that is.
I know. Well, we're going to talk about that as well in a minute. And then I took my daughter to the movies for the second time in her life.
Yes?
And, well, the second time that she sat and knew she was watching a movie. I used to take her when she was a baby all the time, and she would sleep through the whole movie.
Oh, sure.
We saw Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2.
Ooh.
Electric Boogaloo. And here's the thing. I can't help it.
You're
Here's
the
the
most
thing.
ridiculous person I know. Go ahead.
I want to say real quick. This is okay. I want to say this about this movie. The first one came out, and I had no interest in seeing it.
Yes.
Right? Zero.
Yes.
Zero interest. Hold on a second.
Yes.
But I ended up seeing it on like an airplane or something like that, and I was like, wait, this movie's amazing. Like, it's hilarious. This movie.
Sure.
So then I thought, and much better. Did you see the first movie?
I didn't, but you say things that everyone who has seen it has said. I believe you. I totally believe you.
I was amazed by how good it was, and shocked and surprised, and so then they decided they were going to make a second one, and immediately my attitude was like, what a terrible idea. And I had low expectations seeing the first one, and then I had low expectations seeing the second one. And the second one was amazing. It was amazing. And I was watching this movie going, why did I have low expectations for a movie that the first one was amazing, all the same people are back, and the previews for the second one were funny, and I still didn't think it was going to be any good, and it was hilarious. Top of all that, the premise of the movie is that Apple is an evil company. That's the premise of the movie.
Awesome.
I loved it.
Awesome.
So, anyways, see Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, but only after seeing Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 1. It's going to make your day. My daughter had a blast.
That's lovely.
She loved this movie.
I love that.
She ate popcorn and acted like a crazy person. It was pretty great.
That's fantastic.
And then, by some sheer chance talk about today, I saw Thor: The Dark World in 3D, so I saw it twice this week. I didn't like it enough to see it twice, but I saw it twice.
Awesome. And
so those were my 6 movies.
What's funny is next week you're going to hear me say Thor: The Dark World because I did like it enough to see it twice. So if only our lives were madcap comedy adventures where we could switch bodies, you know?
It's true. Give me the quote that you texted me about the movie Room 237.
Well, okay, but see, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move into my one big thing because my one big thing is Room 237 or something that I started thinking about because of it. But folks, I want to keep this brief because we're going to talk about Room 237 in a very, very imminent podcast. So I don't want to say too much.
Subsequent podcast.
Indeed.
Sounds good.
Indeed. Okay, so this is my one big thing, and Phil, you've asked me to read the texts. I'm going to redact them because this is a family podcast, but these are the 2 texts I sent you. Watching Room 237. It is totally bleeping insane. I don't know that I ever want to watch a movie again, or experience any art in any way at all, ever. To which you responded, genius. To which I responded, I'd tell you the weirdest parts, but 1, I don't want to spoil it, and 2, it would just be the entire bleeping movie.
Yeah.
Folks.
Well, I think we've learned a couple of things. 1, you have a potty mouth. I
do. A bleeping bleep of a bleepy mouth. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's true.
So, folks, this movie. So I read a science fiction short story when I was in high school, and the storyline was this: a guy invents time travel, and he goes back and he gets Shakespeare. Okay. And he brings Shakespeare to the modern day. He's a professor. He's like a history professor or something like that. And okay. Shakespeare enrolls in a class about Shakespeare, right?
Oh man.
And he says something like, "Oh, over the centuries, what torrents can be wrung from a damp rag," or something like that. And the punchline of the story is that Shakespeare flunks the Shakespeare class. Okay?
Right.
Which you can see coming, let's be honest.
Sure, but great. I love it anyway.
Yes, no, it's fun. And it's like a page and a half long. You're not looking for nuance. So, that's kind of what Room 237 felt like, because, I mean, it makes the point, this is the one thing I'll say without spoiling it, Kubrick was good at making movies. He was good at making movies.
Okay.
To the point where if something looks weird, people assume that it means something. They don't assume that it's a continuity error or it's something weird or something he didn't think about, right? And that's a fair assumption. But here's the deal. Some of these, I want so badly to just blurt out what some of these ideas are. And just the way that these things are just said. They're just said like they're normal people instead of totally cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs weirdos.
Right.
But here's the deal. They aren't. They're like a respected historian. Like they're real people. They're real people, and so I don't think respected historians should be trusted. Just for the record,
or continue
or consider real people
at all. But continue.
Sure. But the deal is this: it is impossible if you are me, and I'm going to guess, Phil, if you're you. If you're someone who thinks a lot about movies, you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be made uncomfortable by this movie. Because it's like, is this what I sound like? Or
that's interesting. So you'd rather just never watch a movie again because you don't want to have opinions that are vain.
Yeah, that are. I don't want to have opinions that are like this.
Do I sound normal, but it turns out I'm completely insane?
Yes. Or to put it in my lexicon, what the bleep do I bleeping sound like when I bleeping talk this bleep?
Right. I feel like if Alfonso Cuarón was listening to our Gravity podcast and was just like, nope, none of those things. Nope. There's that point where I'm like, it's so obvious. And he's like, no, it isn't. Nope.
I don't sure it is, Phil, because you're wrong. Except in a Spanish accent.
Wrong, no.
Yes.
Right.
Oh.
See, no. See, no. Anyways.
Más o menos.
Well, I look forward to that. I look forward to seeing it.
It is, you will enjoy it? It is something you will
I don't like documentaries much anyway. I'm not a huge fan, so it'll be interesting to see. But I've been kind of avoiding watching it because of that, which is my problem.
Me too. A very good friend of mine and a good friend of the podcast, John Strohmeyer, who just got married. John, consider this your wedding gift because I'm cheap. He has been trying to get us to do a Shining and Room 237 podcast for months now. Months! And we're finally doing it. John.
Soon.
Yeah, John. This is... Look at what ye have wrought. Alright? I don't even know if I want to watch movies anymore.
John, may God have mercy on your soul.
There we go. I hope you're happy in your marriage.
Yeah, seriously. The chances of that are pretty small. The chances are pretty slender.
If statistics are to be believed, no better than 50-50.
If statistics and personal experience on marriage are to be believed, chances are probably not. All right. Can I do my one big thing?
I can't. I want to talk more. I can't. Please do your one big thing.
Phil. In the course of human events, once in a while,
I'm picturing this.
A young 18-year-old Philip Duvall with a big curly head of hair on top of his head goes to the movies and sees a film that, unbeknownst to him, would become a nominee for Best Picture. I saw a movie called Talking Picture. Saw me a movie back in '97 called The Full Monty. The Full Monty ended up becoming a really big hit, a sleeper, and ended up being nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture. And lost, but I'll tell you this, or didn't win anyway. I don't know if anybody really loses. I'm just kidding. Goodfellas lost. And when Forrest Gump won, the whole nation lost. So, but what I'll say is that every once in a while these little British flicks come around, and they get sort of nationally recognized in America, and they get a lot of cred, and then they sometimes get nominated for Best Picture, and then later on down the line we kind of go it gets forgotten.
Right.
There are movies that get nominated for Best Picture you don't forget. But then a movie like Full Monty, you might be like, really? That got nominated for Best Picture? It was a cute sleeper comedy, but it got nominated for Best Picture?
Yep.
Andy, I watched it yesterday, and yes, It should have been nominated. It was, Andy, this movie, I'm going to say it. Here it comes. Are you ready?
Wait. Now I'm ready.
The Full Monty is a perfect movie.
I love it. I love
I mean
everything
it.
you're saying right now.
I mean it.
I
It
know you
is.
do.
I dare everyone to watch. First of all, makes stripping seem like a good thing, which is male stripping. First of all, I don't know. It manages to take something that is in its nature exploitative and use it as a vehicle for empowerment for men.
Yes.
Very strange.
Yes.
And
Yes,
ends up
well said.
this movie, I think what's amazing to me is name a great comedy name a great comedy from the last 10 years. Name a great comedy from the last 10 years that was also a great movie.
It's tough.
It's difficult.
Yeah,
it
you're
is.
right, you're
As
right.
if you take out Toy Stories, the Toy Story movies,
Right.
it's even harder.
Right.
Like, name a comedy. You know, I mean, you have to look at the Coen brothers oeuvre. I mean, and see, but in the last 10 years, have they made a great comedy? So I mean, it's tough, right?
Yeah.
So this movie wasn't in the last 10 years. This movie came out in '97, but still, this movie deserved to be nominated for Best Picture. Let me list the movies that were nominated for Best Picture this year.
Okay.
The winner was Titanic.
Okay.
As Good as It Gets, The Full Monty, Good Will Hunting, L.A. Confidential. Let me say a couple things about that year. First of all, of the 5, Titanic was the worst.
Yes. Oh, yes.
The other 4 movies are better than Titanic.
Yes.
Number 2, is this the most entertaining, the most entertaining list of nominees? Normally, there's one prestige drama that drives you insane.
Yes.
Every one of the movies I just listed, with the exception of Titanic, but it wasn't a prestige drama, it was a blockbuster, a legit blockbuster.
Right.
Every one of these movies is basically a crowd pleaser.
Yes, and I maintain that, like, the movie that is Titanic once the iceberg hits the boat is one of the most exciting movies ever made. It is ridiculous. It is so exciting.
Right.
It's just
Sure.
absurd. It
Yes.
does not in no way invalidate your point. But yes, you're right. An astonishingly fun, and I don't say that to denigrate either. An astonishingly fun year for movies.
Yep.
Just
Yes.
fun. Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, but the thing I wanted to say is, I think, like, I was blown away by how good The Full Monty was in retrospect. I remember liking it when I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are movies that are great the first time you see them, or fun, and we saw a lot. I mean, this is what I would say. The most formative years of our life when it comes to what we end up appreciating in terms of art, music, film, all that stuff,
Yep.
are our teenage years and early 20s.
True.
The problem with that is that we don't know bleep. We don't know anything in our teens and 20s.
No, nothing. I
Like,
still don't know anything.
we are so patently stupid in high school and college.
It's so true. It's so true.
And I have some friends I taught in high school, and I have I have some friends that were graduates from the school I went to, and they're in college now, and I respect you. And it sounds really patronizing for me to say how stupid you are when you're a teenager, and I love you, but I promise you, when you're 34, you'll be like, I was such an idiot when I was 17.
What was I thinking?
And here's what I'll say: you guys that are listening now at the age of 17, and 18, and 19, you're clearly brilliant. Look at what you're listening to, and you're much smarter than I was at your age.
Yes.
I was an idiot as a teenager, which is amazing because I was smarter than my parents. But
It's crazy how that works.
you see these movies like Full Monty when you're a teenager, and I was like, that's a good movie. But when you watch it as an adult, and you legitimately see a man struggling for his dignity, or a group of men struggling for their dignity, and the one main subplot for the Brian, whatever his name is, character who plays a guy named Dave, is about his weight, and he says stuff in the movie that I know I have said, and I'm sure you have said, and it's
Indeed.
so to the point that in the end, in the final, in the climactic scene, when he takes off his shirt I'm crying, and I'm not crying like because it's the humanity.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
my wife was like, "Am I really crying right now?" I'm like, "Yes, you really are." It is such a beautiful movie. I want everyone to see the Full Monty. I want everyone. It's like it is a perfect example of a movie that is smart. Oh, you know what else I love about it? It is about one thing. You know, I love movies that are about one thing.
Yes.
It doesn't try to be about everything in the world.
Right. That's right.
It is. These guys are down on their luck. In the very first scene, they walk by a Chippendales show. In the very first scene. And in the very first scene, they walk by it, and the main character's like, "This is nonsense. These aren't even real men. We're real men." And then in the very next scene, he's like, "We should do this."
Right.
And then that's what the whole movie is about.
Yes. Yes.
Pick a story. Tell it.
Tell that story
and then
really
go
well.
home. Right.
You know, I'm
That's
gonna bring up another movie that I don't want to sit here and get into which one is better because that's totally useless. But I will say this: The Full Monty fills me. It fills my heart when I watch it. And another movie that fits the exact same thing you just said. It is a British movie that sort of came out of nowhere and was like the British movie for America this year.
I think I know what you're gonna say. Go ahead.
Billy Elliot.
I didn't know you were going to say that, but yes.
What did you think I was going to say?
Now, Four Weddings and a Funeral.
Oh,
I thought you were going to say Four Weddings and a Funeral.
Sure.
Another Best Picture nominee, by the way.
Yes. Billy Elliot, not a Best Picture nominee. It could have been. I don't know. I don't remember what was.
Billy Elliot for me, and this isn't actually a critique of the movie.
Okay.
But it gets into some sort of like a political area that Full Monty doesn't.
That's right.
It's not bad that it does that. It's
Right.
not bad that it does that.
Right.
Unless you disagree with the politics of that movie, then it's like kind of a bummer.
I suppose that's true.
It's making this deep political statement that I'm not sure whether or not I agree with, partially because I wasn't English in the 80s, so it's hard for me. It's difficult.
It's a fair point.
Anyways.
But like in much the same way.
But in terms of the way that it.
Yes, I didn't think I would cry when a fat man took off his shirt, and I cry when that guy takes off his shirt.
Right.
I didn't think that I could be made to cry.
Yep.
From the beauty of like. Okay, this is going to sound stupid because of course this is why people love it, but like. The beauty of like one dude leaping through the air, one dude you've never seen before because you only know him as a little kid, and now you see him in the last scene of the movie as an adult, and he jumps, and it's a ballet leap, and it's in slow motion, and I am a mess because you've got the dad there and the friend who's all grown up, and it's just it's. But honestly, it's a dude in swan pants who is jumping. And that is it. And it's like, why am I not even human anymore? I'm crying so hard. Why is that happening? And you know why?
Yeah.
Because we stole the land from them. We took the country, but they took my heart. That's what I got.
Whose country did we take? Whose land did we take?
Well, I mean the British. And also the American Indians, but that's a different thing.
I'm so confused. All I know is you realize when you started. I'm glad you talked about a ballet movie that fills your heart and a scene that makes you cry with joy. Because when I watched Mila Kunis and Natalie Portman make out in Black Swan, I felt what you're describing right now. It filled me in a way that I've never understood and I've never been able to articulate. And I never. Who knew? I daren't dream it, and yet here we are today in a better world because of Darren Aronofsky.
Second Breakfast Nation. Here's why you're sad. Because when I get off. Because when we stop recording, I'm going to say a lot of jokes engendered by this moment to Phil, and you don't get to hear any of them.
Not gonna hear them.
None of them.
You're gonna have to wait for the. You're gonna have to wait for the outtake DVD.
Yes,
which
Second
will be
Breakfast
published
Gone Wild.
after our deaths.
That's right, after our deaths. Oh God! Please don't let me die
not
now.
to be disseminated. Not to be disseminated until the Reverend Philip Duvall dies.
Indeed. Yes.
All right.
Wow. Shall we move on to our main topic of the cast of the pod?
Oh, can we? Can we please?
Yes.
Can we please?
And we haven't talked about this, Phil, but I would like to try and do this reasonably spoiler-free. I think that's going to be fairly
Love
easy to
it.
do.
Let's give it a shot.
Folks,
Sure.
Thor, The Dark World.
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to spoil a movie that's not about anything and is completely incoherent. So let's give it a shot.
Yes. Yes. And what's funny is that's how you said it, and here's how I would say it. It's hard to spoil a movie that isn't about anything, and it's completely incoherent.
Yeah.
We don't actually disagree on how quote unquote good the movie was. But I had a freaking blast with this movie. Blast.
I think it finally happened to me, Andy. I think it finally happened to me. Where and this is going to sound so obnoxious, and please know that I know that.
Okay.
Please know
Okay.
before it comes out of my mouth what I sound like, and I'm gonna go hang myself when this is over. But listen to what I have to say on my own pretense. On my own pretense. It's a symbolic hanging, people. Don't worry.
It's a
I'll be alive
symbolic
later.
hoisting on your own petard. Go ahead.
My soul is dead and gone to hell, but the rest of me will be here marching through this world until the dying day. Here's the deal. I hadn't been to the movies in well, I guess I saw Ender's Game by myself earlier in the week. Never mind. But that was a special situation. I had this night where I felt like my wife and I and a friend of ours got to go to the movies. I still haven't seen the James Gandolfini movie.
Right.
I still haven't seen Blue Jasmine. There's a dozen movies out there that I'd like to see.
Yeah.
And we went and saw Thor. And I remember thinking at the end of the movie, that was it. That was my movie night. And I saw that. Okay.
Sure.
And then I saw it again today because my brother-in-law, who I never get to hang out with and who I love and who's a very busy man who works too much, texts me today and is like, day off, I'm gonna go see Thor, let's go. And I'm like, I can't say no. I don't know about you, but when people that I love that I don't get to see ask me to go to a movie, whether
No
I've seen it or
question.
not,
Yes.
he wanted to go tonight and he changed it to the daytime because of me. And so I couldn't be like, let's go in the middle of the day. Also, let's see a totally different movie. Like, I can't be that person.
No, of course not.
So
You're right.
So I went and saw Thor again, and this time really I was like, wow, my days are numbered by God himself, and this is how I'm using them. Like there are so many hours in my life, and I have given 4 of them to Thor: The Dark World, and it just made me sad.
Okay.
I didn't hate this movie. I swear to you, I didn't hate it. It is. I feel like it was Clark Griswold
Oh boy.
at Wally World deciding this family is gonna have fun at all costs.
Yeah. Okay.
We are making a movie, and you're gonna have fun. It's Thor. Now watch it and enjoy yourself. That's how I felt. That's how I felt.
Okay. I have a question for you, and I will admit I'm phrasing this question to sort of poke you in the eye. So I want you to let me explain it after I ask this question.
Okay.
Explain to me, Phil, when exactly it was that your inner child died.
I think it was during Thor: The Dark World,
Okay,
the second time I saw it.
Okay, here's the deal. Here's why I say it that way. I actually mean that more specifically than you would think, because I mean, and it's going to sound like an insult coming out of my mouth, and I don't mean it as such, this movie is made for, what, at least for me, was made for my inner child. It was like, you know what you've seen? You've seen Thor hammer punch people forever. You've seen the climax of the Avengers where New York City gets torn to shreds forever. You've seen Man of Steel, where these people super punch each other for 20 solid minutes, and it gets so boring. So what are we going to do with this climax?
Although that basically happens in this movie.
I disagree. And I mean, okay, no, I don't disagree. Of course you're right. But here's what they did. They broke it up with with what is exactly what I want to see. How many times have I said it on this podcast? What I want to see out of any movie, whether it is Schindler's List or The Pink Panther or Buster Keaton or Anchorman, I want to see the joy of cinema, all right? The joy of performance. And when you have a troupe of creative people doing things like, okay, now they're going to disappear and Thor is going to have to get on the subway. And that's all I'm going to say. Like,
that was funny.
That was like, but what that did for me, and I'm genuinely sorry that it didn't do it for you, because it was enough to bump this movie up into, I'd say, the top half of Marvel movies for me. Way more than the first Thor, and I actually like the first Thor. I think it holds up pretty well. It broke it up enough. The levity leavened it. See what I did there? Do you see what I did there with the sort of alliteration?
Which is hard to deal with in the sense that this movie is about the potential end of all that could ever has been at a 5,000 year interval event. The whole world is about to end. And they're like, la-di-dee-dee-doo. And they don't show anyone outside of this little circle. And they're the only people in the whole universe that know what's happening. But I hear you. I get what you're saying. I get it. And if that's your question to me, then I guess my answer to you is my inner child died a long time ago. My inner child may never. I mean, my inner child may never have been born. It's possible that it's still waiting, just watching and waiting for its proper moment.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's kind of terrifying.
Here's the deal.
I don't. In the Omen, by the way.
It's all for me, Andy. It's all for me. It's all for you, Phil. It's all for you. Speaking of it's all for you, the premise of this movie is that the Earth is the center of the world. Or the universe, the whole universe. The multiverse. Just want to point that out.
Yes.
I also want to point out that clearly it's an American movie about Norse gods, so everyone has an English accent. Of course.
Yes.
Now, listen.
I have a quick mythology question for you.
Please.
Is it true, or no? Let me say that a different way. Is it true?
Is it true?
Is in Norse mythology? In Norse mythology, isn't it true that Midgard or Earth is the center of the universe? Because that mythology
I don't know.
Came around at a point where we thought, the sun went around the Earth and we're the center of creation and all of that stuff. So I and I am not saying that Marvel did it this way to increase the cinema verite aspect of the Norse mythology. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, is what I'm saying. Go ahead. Please continue. I love this.
Totally possible. And no, I mean, if you look at ancient mythology, most ancient mythology and creation myths describe the world that we know as the center of things, because that's what we know. It starts from where we are and moves outwards. So that's fine with me. Doesn't bother me. And even what's really interesting about the Judeo-Christian myths, the Genesis stories, is that, it starts actually not with humanity. It starts with God. But the climax of God's creation is humanity. So, I mean, again, there you go. That doesn't bother me too much.
Yeah.
I don't think the movie was created for my inner child. I think it was created because they needed to make another Thor movie for a franchise that will continue to make billions of dollars. And I know that sounds so cynical, except here's the problem. The introduction to the movie was stolen straight from Lord of the Rings. Tons of the pictures were basically from Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. There was a whole attack on Asgard that was basically episode 1, including a machine that looked just like one of the pod racers and had the same sound effects as a pod racer.
All right.
My wife leaned over to me during the movie. My wife leans over me during the Asgard attack and goes, "This is like episode 1." Out of nowhere. My wife's not even a movie nerd. And there were things like that where it was like, and so much of it, I mean, the way that it was told was so Lord of the Rings. The bad guy that was the Cursed, he looked like the Predator and acted like one of the creatures from the Lord of the Rings Two Towers. It just, to me, was And I mean, and here again, it's sounding like I hated this movie because I didn't hate it, believe it or not. It was enjoyable, and everybody who had a job to do did a good job. It felt extremely derivative to me.
Okay.
Not original by any stretch of the imagination. Like, there were gags because they knew they had to have gags because of the world that Joss Whedon set up in The Avengers. And I have my own critiques of Joss Whedon.
Ooh.
But I will tell you that this movie made me realize how talented of a filmmaker Joss Whedon is.
Because his gags worked, or because his gags worked for you?
It worked because The Avengers was successful on such... It was successful in a way that felt so effortless to me.
Sure.
And this movie felt like they were trying so hard to hit the same notes. I did not go into this movie expecting to hate it. I was actually like... I'm one of the ones who thinks Thor is an underrated character in the Marvel oeuvre.
Yeah.
That because I refuse to say Irv. I think I liked the first Thor movie. Mm-hmm. I was excited for this one. I liked a lot of the things about it. I literally remember at the moment when they break Loki, and I don't think this is a big spoiler because they showed in the preview that Thor comes to Loki and says, "I'm gonna need your help."
Yeah.
The moment that he gets his help, and from that moment forward, I feel like the movie wakes up.
I agree with that.
And I feel like Tom Hiddleston is the real deal.
Are you ready for this?
Please.
I think Tom Hiddleston, even in this movie, should at least get talked about for supporting actor. He is that good. He is that good. And I liked everything about the movie. I liked the movie. He elevates every frame he's in to something that is operatic and mythological with a big M. Like he is I love the character of Thor, and I love the way that Chris Hemsworth plays him, and I love Anthony Hopkins and Rene Russo and Natalie Portman does what she can, but Tom Hiddleston...
Whoa! Do you not like Natalie Portman?
I don't love the character. I think she's fine.
Oh, but her as an actor...
I love her. I think she... No, I know.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I guess I didn't say that with the right inflection. She does everything she can with arm candy role. And I just think, if there's anyone in Hollywood, every woman in Hollywood should be beyond arm candy roles, as a matter of course. But certainly Natalie Portman should be beyond arm candy roles at this point, unless, as you would put it, she's opposite Mila Kunis.
Yeah.
So, but like he's great, and I love everything you just said. But I got to disagree with you gently on at least one of your points.
Please.
I didn't so much think that they were trying to ape the Avengers as they were trying to ape the first Thor. The first Thor has more... Okay, how to put this? Kat Dennings, in the first movie and in the second movie, is doing the exact same thing. In terms of structurally, what she's doing in the movie.
Yes.
That wasn't the Avengers. She wasn't in the Avengers. That was the first Thor.
No, you're right. Sure.
There is, and you've got the Warriors 3 and the Lady Sif. Lady Sif isn't really comic relief in the same way as the Warriors 3 are, but the Warriors 3 are comic relief, and
right.
And they're doing functionally the same thing. I guess
I hear that. It's a sequel in that sense.
Yeah. I guess just for me, it felt much more of a piece with the first Thor, even as they expanded.
But you mentioned that moment in the subway. You mentioned the moment where Thor rides the subway.
That's very much an Avengers moment.
I felt like that was
much an Avengers moment.
And so was the moment. There's a moment at the end of the movie where they're sitting around a table, and it's exactly like the second tag at the end of the Avengers movie.
That's
true.
True.
It's very clear they're trying to, but there are great moments. The moment where Thor hangs his hammer up is. Again, there were a lot of good moments in this movie. I really do think that. I think there were a lot of good moments. I think this movie was manufactured more than it was made. I think it was poorly written and the great acting. So the people who were in it are great performers, performing roles they already have played and know how to play. And I'm not saying that as a knock on them. It's good.
Right.
But I mean, it's so there's laziness. When Jane Foster meets Loki and she slaps him in the face, she's already slapped Thor twice, so now she just slaps people apparently. But she slaps Loki in the face, and she says, "That's for New York." She didn't need to say that. She could have just slapped him. He's Loki. We know why she slaps him. He knows why she slaps him. Everybody knows why she slaps him.
You're right.
That's bad writing.
Yes.
There's a couple moments like that. I won't go into them, but it's stuff where I'm just like, you're doing that because you think we're stupid, but we're not stupid. Well, some people are stupid, but I'm not.
Some people are stupid. So here are my thoughts. I actually don't disagree with you all that much. I do think it was badly written. I do think it was manufactured rather than made. Here's where I depart from you. All right, and it's purely maybe it's expectations. Maybe it's maybe I'm a sap, and that's totally possible.
Sure.
If it's going to fail at a place, not the writing. You know that writing's my jam, so that upsets me. But if it is manufactured, if it is rolled off an assembly line, if it is the most cynical cash grab ever on the studio level, and it is.
Thank you. Good, continue.
But the director and the actors are giving it their all. I am likely not to care. And that's just a thing about me. Like that's a thing about me. I could watch Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston play off of each other forever. I don't care if they are shilling cars like Ron Burgundy in those new car commercials, which are ridiculous. I don't care. I would watch them do that. You know what I mean? Because they are two talented guys who are playing parts they love with other actors that they love. I could watch that forever. And honestly, that's what this movie was for me. And also, I do think, perhaps unsurprisingly, because we've got Kenneth Branagh versus a guy who's done Game of Thrones, I do think the action was better staged this time around.
Fine. I think the story was tighter the last time around, and
I
think the writing was better the last time around.
I
think
agree.
here's an I have, and then it's all yours, and we can talk. And again, it sounds like I hated this movie.
Sure.
I think I hated it on one level, and on another level, I was perfectly pleased to be watching it, and I'm sure that if it's on HBO, I won't tape it, I won't buy it. But I would click on to see what scene it's showing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I do.
It was entertaining.
Yes.
Its job is to entertain you.
And it did that.
Clark Griswold gets his family into Wally World.
It's true.
Okay? He has to go completely insane to do it, and he pulls out a gun and forces them into Wally World, but they get to Wally World. That's how this movie you like, okay, now you're going to have fun, and we are going to use every trope from every really original movie from the last 20 years and some of the other ones that were already derivative, but we're going to make it happen.
Right.
Okay, one side note. One's a side note. Will Ferrell is an outspoken environmentalist who drives hybrids and votes in a way that is and advocates in a way that is very, very pro-environment, and now he's selling Dodges. You have no credibility, sir. Period.
Yep.
Secondly, and this is a thing for me. I was watching the movie, and while I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, this is all fine and good. This was the first time I watched it, by the way. This is all fine and good. But when they make a third one, I'm not sure that I will go to see it.
Okay.
Now, and I still probably will, let's be honest. But I thought that. But what's weird to me about that is, when you were watching Mud, you weren't thinking, when they make a second one, will I go and see it?
Not
there is
one
an interesting
part of that.
thing.
Not one clause of that sentence was I thinking. Neither part. It's
right. there is something about the fact that these movies that was exciting and ambitious about the idea of these movies all being part of each other, but there is a point at which it is going to have to end. I think something that I was feeling during the movie actually was superhero fatigue. Superhero fatigue.
Right. That's
and I'm not
fair.
sure. So I'm not sure if my inner child died or if I was just like, I think I hit my... Because I'm not a comic book guy.
Right.
I'm not actually a comic book guy. I like the movies. I have liked them. But I don't automatically on principle like them. And it's possible that I was like, oh, I don't actually care all that much. It's possible that this is actually a perfect comic book film and I don't care about comic books. Like, I would actually argue, Andy, that there are people who are just like, oh, The Walking Dead's terrible. It might be. On the other hand, The Walking Dead might actually be just working out the logistics of living in a zombie myth, and only people who love zombie stuff for reals are going to continue to like it.
That's fair.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. And so it's possible that this movie is a comic book lover's dream, and I'm not a comic book lover.
Sure.
That it's because they are going to keep making them, and like it's a movie that's made to be a franchise, and that's different. That's different than like when they made Hard, they didn't know it was going to be a franchise. When they made Lethal Weapon, they didn't know it was going to be a franchise.
Right. Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, these are movies that became franchises but were not designed as such. That's right.
But when you make a movie based on a comic book, there is immediately potential for a franchise.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's all. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm not saying it's good or bad. Interesting.
It's fair.
Or not, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's interesting. I look, this is a shallow movie. It's a shallow movie. There isn't much to say about it. Period. All right. It's certainly no Ender's Game in terms of layers, right? Like, it's a shallow movie, but because of that, it's kind of like a puppy. Like, you know what's not a complex creature? A puppy. It does one thing. It wants you to love it. It wants to love you, right? And so that sounds like two things, but it's the same thing in different directions. This movie was a puppy. It was like, I love you. I want you to love me. And I was like, you know what? I'm sitting here anyway. I might as well love you. And maybe that's me being a sap. And I really mean that. I'm not just like being glib when I say that.
I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you. I'm not even calling you a sap at all. I'm just trying to think it through in my head.
Right, but like it didn't. For example, while it is unquestionably a better movie, I enjoyed the experience of this movie on first viewing more than Iron Man 3. I did.
Oh, interesting.
I did.
That's fine. I mean, I think one thing I like about Iron Man 3 as opposed to Thor is that Iron Man 3 is completely and utterly about Iron Man trying to save America from this thing that happens and really trying to save himself and his family.
Yes, that's right.
Thor is dipping into primordial world, universe, multiverse existence and taking the most primal evil in the history of all that was and then using it for popcorn. In the end, it doesn't feel to me like the entire universe is about to end. It feels like Thor lost his mom, maybe, and dad, and maybe his whole world, and who knows, but like, and may get back together with his girlfriend or may not. It was fun. It was fun, and you are right. It wanted to make you have fun, and it did that. I agree with you, actually. I do. With primordial creation myth and gods of the multiverse.
Yep. And
it seems like the stakes were
problematic.
too high. The stakes were too high within the plot for the way that it gets resolved. By the way,
fair.
Essentially a video game, and I think Ender's Game handled that better. But I will say this that I'm not actually kidding. Something that, because I do overthink these things. This is my room 237 moment of this movie.
Phil, I promise you, it's not. Go ahead without even knowing. Say what you're gonna say.
I couldn't help but thinking as I watched it the second time, a sentence I never thought I would say. I couldn't help but thinking after I saw it a second time that it fascinated me that these primordial, prehistoric, by our dimension and by our standards, creatures had way higher technology than we did.
Yes.
Way higher technology, way more advanced technology, and had a much deeper understanding of something. Mm-hmm. And I found that really interesting we do this thing as modernists, although we're delving, our generation is moving towards postmodern mentality, but we do this thing is where we classify and we're like, oh, ancient people were idiots.
Right.
Like, they told these myths because they thought we lived on the back of a dead god and that the light was up there was a lightning bug, from space,
right,
or whatever, right? Like,
yep.
And so we told these stories to explain why snakes don't have feet and why women have trouble giving birth, and that's, people think that these myths were only for the sake of etiology, which is in other words, to explain why things are the way they are.
Right.
But the reality of the myths is, regardless of the scientific accuracy or lack thereof, they are tapping into very deep questions about who we are. And so the idea that these ancient creatures have better technology and a deeper understanding of the universe than we do today was actually tremendously satisfying to me. The idea that this primordial evil has a more magnificent power and intelligence than people of today, I actually like that idea. And I thought that was interesting. I thought there was much there to be explored I was interested in, if that makes sense.
I like it. They said something. They said something in the first Thor that he's trying to explain it because, you call it science, your ancestors call it magic. I come from a place where it's one and the same, and that's explaining without explaining it, right? But as I understand it, and I don't know the comic, that's pretty much how it is. Like, it's sort of this blend of, we need to do something and it'll be science, and if we really can't explain it with today's science, we'll just make it magic because they're gods, la la la. That kind of thing, basically. Which I also dig that. You know what it reminds me of, and I don't mean this in a derivative way. The fact that Star Wars takes place long, long ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There is something so brilliant about setting the Star Wars movies in the past. Because as we have as Joseph Campbell
and in a galaxy far, far away.
Well, yes, but Galaxy Far, Far Away, we've seen science fiction that happens in other parts of the universe. But which is not to disagree with you. But what is Star Wars except George Lucas just totally cribbing the hero's journey, right?
Yep.
And so it becomes primal. And and what is more primal than a myth? But you can't have a myth from the future. It has to be from the past. And so it is just it I mean, what's a better movie than Thor: The Dark World? Star Wars. Okay. But
yep.
but I'm going out on a limb. But yeah, this is all a long-winded way of saying I agree with you. I love that the older civilization from time immemorial is like, what are these humans doing? Come on.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. And I loved everybody in it, actually. I want to finish with a positive note. I know we need to wrap up. I want to say I love Tony Hopkins. Hey, Anthony Hopkins, just keep doing whatever you want to do.
Anything and everything.
You and I say this with love, you haven't stretched in years, but I kind of don't even care at this point.
Right, that's right.
Do whatever you want to do.
You know what?
Did you see his letter? Did you see his open letter to Bryan Cranston and the cast of Breaking Bad?
No.
Okay.
I'll find it.
Go find that immediately, Second Breakfast Nation and Andy, and then you're gonna text me immediately afterwards and be like, OMG, ZOMG, LOL, ROFL, DIAF, whatever. You're gonna say a bunch of acronyms. It's gonna be amazing, and you're gonna feel all of them. Second, Rene Russo, amazing in this movie. Great to see her be
Idris
someone
Elba.
I love.
Idris Elba.
I love
Oh.
Idris Elba. I love
My
Idris Elba.
God. Oh my God.
And that dude from Lost was in it, although heavily made up.
Oh yes, Mr. Echo.
He's the,
yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Echo was in it. Yep. Okay, anyways, so,
Yes.
love the movie.
If they're
No, I
going
didn't,
to,
but I loved everybody in it.
If they're gonna have an American movie about Norse gods with British accents starring an Australian, and they're gonna have the brute, animalistic thug be a black man, at least they had the biggest awesome guy, gatekeeper, intelligent guy also be a black man.
Also be black.
I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
at
agreed.
least, you know.
And agreed. And also, is Chris Hemsworth Australian?
Yes.
I didn't realize that, and there was a moment in the movie where I was like, did Thor just put on a fake Australian accent? I seriously did that not knowing.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
So listen, Chris, we're gonna need you to play a Norse god. Oh, so what kind of accent should I have? British.
What?
Okay. Sure. Sure.
How many zeros are on
Natalie
this check?
Portman,
Okay.
Kat Dennings.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many? Keep making them. Okay.
And I don't say
one
that
more zero. We're in.
Again, that is not to take away from the wonderful job that Chris Hemsworth does in this movie. I'm just saying, if I were going to play a part and they wanted me to have a certain accent, enough zeros would make me not care about that particular issue of the character.
And well, no, I mean he's locked into Thor for the next 10 years. That's the deal.
That's true. You're right.
You know,
That's right.
and that's fine.
I could watch him play it forever.
He is perfecting the gorgeous cocky badass. Perfecting.
You're right. Jason Statham is like, what the hell?
Yeah, this is not fair, mate. All right, we're all done, I think. Do you have anything else to say about this movie?
No. Although
Okay.
I do look forward to seeing it.
I'm sorry I was such a negative Nelly.
No,
I am sorry I was such a negative Nelly. But it deserves it.
I love you, but respectfully disagree about all of that. I don't think it deserves it, except for the points where
How
you
excited are you?
And I don't think you were a
last
negative
question.
Nelly.
Last question.
Hit me.
How excited are you for whatever happens with Benicio del Toro in the future?
A billion excited. Excited.
Yeah.
Phil?
Do you know what the Marvel Universe needed? Benicio del Toro.
Phil?
Full stop.
A billion excited. Oh my goodness, am I excited for that movie?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Yes. I just
Yep.
I'm beside myself. I'm right here, and then I'm like right here next to me. That's how excited I am for that movie. Folks, stay through the credits. There are two scenes. The more fun one and unquestionably the weirder one is the one that comes first. Oh, Benicio.
Yep.
I would give you the keys.
Benicio.
You bleeping bleep bleeper. I just would.
Yep.
I would.
I'd give him. He wouldn't even have to ask. I'd just give it to him.
That's right. And with that, folks, that'll bring us to the end of our Second Breakfast podcast. We will see you later this week for Second Breakfast Nation. I am Andy Roth, and that is Phil Duvall. See you again soon. Bye-bye.
It's me. Bye, everybody.
The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.